Welcome back, Warrior Family.
Woohoo!
It is another episode of your favorite anxiety podcast. We hope.
Yes.
It better be.
It's my
Otherwise,
favorite anxiety podcast.
Also, it better be.
Yes.
We should be loving what we're doing, and thankfully we do. We are so excited for this week's episode. Our topic this week is anxiety around selling stuff. Ugh, I know.
Yeah.
It's like even just saying it, it's just like ugh, I just want to spit it out. Just selling stuff. Gross. It's just I don't know what it is. I guess it's just I feel like it's in some people's DNA.
Yes.
And then I guess for other people it's learned. But then for you and me, it's like anti-selling. I feel like we have the anti-selling gene.
Yes. I've heard that's hereditary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So friends, so warriors, we are going to be talking a little bit about how it feels as small business people, as, teachers, people who have products in the world, people who love to create and be creative, but didn't always have to sell those creative things.
Yes.
That brought us joy to make, but that doesn't always bring us joy, if ever, trying to get it out there in the hands of the consumer or the client or whatever.
Yes.
So I'm curious, before I jump into my story, what kinds of things come up for you, emotionally or in your body when you're about to sell or thinking about selling?
Yeah. I would say very different when I'm about to sell versus thinking about selling. Right. Because when, and I'll get into this in my story too, but when I'm about to sell in person, I'm not selling, I'm just being me. Versus when I'm about to sell on social media, the feeling that comes up is resistance, because the words that I associate with selling are slimy, manipulative. And so I don't want to be a slimy, manipulative salesperson. Yeah. So that's, the feelings are just discomfort, resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Definitely a lot of that. It's funny. I didn't think the word slimy is so visual. So of course I'm grabbing onto that, but I didn't really, that doesn't come up for me as much. For me, it's more, and again, like you said, it'll be in my story more. It's more about I want to sound smart and knowledgeable. I want to sound like the type of person that somebody would want something from.
Yeah.
And I also, so there's some fear and anxiety around not showing up as my best self in the sales pitch. And there's also that moment of just what happens if I write all this stuff and I take all this time and the person never responds, right? And it's that feeling of, I'm always thinking ahead, I guess is what I'm trying to say about the outcome. And the outcome is almost never good in my head.
Right. Right.
Right. And how sad is that?
It's learned, right? It's a learned thing of because we're not taught, let's go back to all the things we're not taught in school. We're not taught how to make connections and offer products in an authentic way. Right. We're never, that's never discussed. That's never talked about at all. And then when people, at least for me, reach out to me in a DM offering something, I don't even respond. I don't know the person. The way that they're doing it feels slimy to me. Now, I don't think you do slimy stuff, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah. But right. No, right. It's all the planning and will this person even respond? Is my time worth putting all my time into this? So it's kind of exhausting too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So relate.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to dive in here. I've always been passionate about creating stuff. As a kid, I loved to scrapbook. I made just way too many scrapbooks and photo collages for myself, for friends and family as gifts and stuff. And they were just treasured and beloved by people. And I would go to their house and see it up and it would just make my heart soar. All the warriors that have listened for a while know how much I love to journal and write songs and poetry and things like that. As a teacher, I loved creating and writing fun and engaging lesson plans and projects for my students. but it was part of their daily routine and my daily routine. So AKA it wasn't really a choice, right?
Right.
It was like, I'm the teacher, I'm the leader, you're the student, your parents are sending you to the school, they're in my class. And so it's kind of like this expectation is already set up ahead of time. So going from like loving to create and then also creating stuff for the people in my life that I worked with and for and served my students and families. And it's like, okay, but there's already this mutual relationship going on here that's like self-explanatory and expected. But then when I left the classroom to teach yoga and mindfulness full time, and after writing my children's book, I had to start selling things to folks. And guess what? It was suddenly a choice for people. The people out there in the world had to decide if they wanted my services, my products, things like that. So like, even though my career is still service-based, I need to offer my services in my book outwardly, like out loud to other people. Not just like making it sound pretty in my head or in an email. Otherwise no one will know I exist. So I have this feeling of like, no one's going to know you. No one's going to understand what I do or what I'm about or what I offer and sell, certainly. And so it's like, all right, I have clients and customers now, not students that are like forced into my care.
Right.
So it's like, now I felt like I was wearing all these new hats, right? I'm not just teacher and author. I'm also persuader, marketer, promoter. And not all these hats look super cute or feel super comfortable.
Yeah. I love that imagery.
Right? I'm sorry, but some of those hats were super uncozy for me. But I still wanted to share my work and products with others because I've always been the helper, the service provider, the person that wants to, make a contribution to the world, however small it may be. And I believe in helping people, especially children, to learn to love and trust themselves and see the power of their bodies and their minds and their hearts. And so like coming from that deep, authentic place, I know that what I have to offer is really, wonderful and important. And I can speak very passionately on it, but those other hats though, right? Like how to not, as you said, be slimy, not make the other person reading it or hearing my voice talk about it feel like, ugh, this person just wants they just want my money. They just want to rob me of my time. Like, and nothing sounds more gross than that. So my biggest resistance has always been kind of twofold. It's the fear of rejection, as I mentioned before, being annoying or pushing too hard. And also just the imposter syndrome a little bit of just feeling like it requires me to have a skill set that I don't really feel qualified to have. Like I'm not a salesperson. That's not what my education or my background is. And I've never had to sell myself or anything to people before. And like having to do it now as an adult, after a career change and having a new title added to my title as an author. And it's like all the time I'm constantly battling who I am. Right. It's like, but now trying to then sell who I am to a person or multiple people or organizations of people is that much more anxiety producing. I do prefer to email people. I will say emailing and messaging first, and then following up with a call or an in-person meeting once they've responded feels really good for me. That's like been part of my practice. It's just like, it doesn't make me a weak salesperson to use what I feel like is a strength, which is the way that I write things and prepare things, on the page or in the email first. Lead with your best foot first. And then hopefully, once I'm in person, then I can just like let myself shine, be who I am, as you said. I don't like being sold to either, as you mentioned. And I also, here's those weird paradox. I also have so much respect for people that are good at sales. There's something about a great salesperson that's like people who've come to our house to try to like, sell us on, us doing our roof. And we interviewed a bunch of people to come do our stoop a few years ago. And it was just like, I've always been so impressed. My husband's a salesperson. He's an incredible salesperson. I hear him on the phone all the time. I'm like, man, I really wish I could be that fast and comfortable. Just like selling. And I guess the one difference is that those people aren't always selling something that they personally do.
Right.
Something that they have that they didn't create and make themselves. Right. And so like with that in mind, even though I'm so impressed by anyone that could sell anything well and not sound like a slime ball or sleazeball. You've said the word slimy and now it's just like all in my head. It's all I can think about. So some of my reframes that have really helped and supported me the past few years that I've had to like sell myself and sell stuff. Number one, I am not annoying. Well, I'm kind of annoying, but in terms of sales.
No.
Come on, let's be real. It's self-awareness, Abby. It's self-awareness. I'm not annoying. I'm
it's
just
self-deprecating.
Fair enough.
Okay.
See, to me, I wear it as a badge of honor sometimes, but fair enough.
I'm not annoying. I'm ever
just
think you're being, yeah.
Right. I'm just asking. So saying that to myself is very, very supportive. I'm not annoying. I'm just asking. That's like number one for me. Number two, it's not pushy if I'm kind and lead from a place of genuine hopes and desires to serve and better the lives of other people.
Right.
If that's the authentic place that I'm coming from in my heart, and I know that, and I'm kind and I'm not being pushy. I'm just, offering a service. Two more. Number three, being rejected is common. This one is huge for me in my mind. Being rejected is common. There's nothing wrong with me and someone says no or doesn't reply. There are many factors that contribute to a person saying no or being not responsive.
Right.
And finally, opportunities don't have the limits that I place on them. And so I'm constantly saying to myself, there's not enough places for me to teach. I should just stop emailing people or stop trying to sell my book in various locations that are brick and mortar, or don't reach out to that big company that you are obsessed with on Instagram because they're never going to want to talk to you. And so again, back to imposter syndrome, it's come up so many times in many of our chats and with other people as well. The opportunities are not limited except for the ones that are limited in my mind.
I really like that one.
Yeah. So those have been some of my reframes. And listen, people, these are actively practiced reframes.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that I need to just they're on a Post-it, I need to just make myself a giant poster with these things on them. So I always remember them. But when I do remember them, it helps a great deal, so much.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love all of them, but especially that last one for me, in my heart was take that reframe and own it too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I have a lot of thoughts, questions, and reflections, and I'm going to try to organize all of that. But the first thing is, when you were saying when people don't respond, it's not a rejection. And I would also just add to that, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting your email or they're rejecting your service, but it's not you. And I'm also saying that because that's something that comes up for me, is it feels like a rejection of me. Right. And I can also very much relate to the annoying thing. So that's probably why I so firmly said no. Because that is the last word I would ever describe you as. Right. Aww. And so, when I see you on social media, which I know is a topic we're going to talk about at some point too, I always see you as brave or consistent or showing up. And I'm never oh my God, Margot, please stop. That's annoying. Right. I never have that thought. And so I can relate to the fear of coming off as annoying, but I just want to say I never see that as you ever. Right. So
I will take it.
Yeah. Own that. You are the opposite of annoying, whatever that is.
No clue.
But then also what I wanted to say was, you were sharing how as a teacher, you just naturally created this stuff. You just naturally would create curriculum or whatever. And I just wonder, if you were still in that classroom setting, how naturally you would sell your book. It's in person. You're talking to parents, you're wow, I've been doing this with the kids. I see a change in them. I wrote a book about it to support my kids. It would just be organic. It wouldn't even be selling. You would be just talking about something you created, and most likely people would buy it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I want to say that it would be a little different maybe, but I honestly don't think so. I feel like I would still have the blockade of this is something that I need to have an exchange for. So it's the money factor that I think trips me up, is that it's about that self-worthiness, right? And it's like, regardless of all the stuff that I knew I was really good at writing for my stuff, for my kids for free in the classroom as part of my job.
Yeah.
Then having something that I've created that I certainly spent time and money and effort into creating.
Right.
But then I'm never always in my mind. I always struggle to factor that in when I'm selling to someone. And so that's a great new reframe that I feel like I'm being offered right now. Just coming up as I'm talking. And as you asked that of me, because I feel like, yeah, that's something I like to reflect on more, I think.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like it'd be different if I were still teaching full time and trying to sell my book, even if I were, because for me, the issue was never talking about a lack of talking authentically. Because once I'm in the conversation about something I'm super passionate about, it just comes pouring out.
Right.
So like, I still think the part where it's like, now put money in my hand and I will hand you this book.
Yeah.
That's the part where I'm like, but that feels weird to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be different. Maybe it would be. I couldn't say, but when you ask that, my gut tells me no, it wouldn't be different. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just the selling gene.
It's it's
making this up, people. There's no such thing as a selling thing. If there is, I have no clue.
We'll find out.
No.
Someone will tell us.
Someone will tell us.
Yeah. So, okay. And then is there a difference between selling a service like teaching versus selling a product like a book? Because in my mind, there's a difference, but I don't know.
To me, there's a difference too.
Okay. And so what comes up for you?
It's the lack of in the moment, right? And what I mean by that is when I'm providing a service, when I'm say doing a demo lesson or something, right? There's that in the momentness. There's that reactiveness that's happening. There's the in the now conversation that's going on. When I haven't, when I'm trying to sell something that someone's going to take away and bring home with them, it's going to be judged later on. There may not be a conversation about it either. And so that's some of my anxiety around selling a service versus my book, is that like, I may not even know how that person feels about what I did because there's no interaction about it. I mean, there are plenty of people, I'll get messages and people leave reviews, or they post pictures on their social media of their kid with their book or them reading it to their class of kids. And like, oh my gosh, it's like, that's incredible feedback. And I love that. I wish every single person that ever bought anything from anyone had no choice but to like lift that person up. But yeah, I think that's part of it. Maybe it's just like not knowing the outcome of how someone feels about something I've given them.
Wow. It's just so interesting because in my mind, the narrative or the storyline that I have is it's harder to sell a service rather than a product, because with a product, there's this exchange of physical. Here is money. Here is a book, right? As opposed to here is money. And now we're going to schedule, a thing 2 weeks from now where I'm going to do a teaching or mentoring or coaching or whatever I'm going to do. Right. And so it's so interesting to hear your thoughts around it, because like I have all these blocks up about like a physical product versus like a service product.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, when you say it like that, there are times when that comes up too. But yeah, I think it's more about like, I want to know. I want that like dopamine hit of like somebody smiling at my face or saying, I loved this, or this is so great, or this was, I love this is my favorite part, or whatever. And so,
and that part, like what you're saying is really like important. Like just the other day, someone that I haven't spoken to in years and years and years messaged me and was like, we just saw you on Go Noodle. And like, they didn't have to do that. Right. They could have just watched it and did it with their kid and then let it go. And it's like, you're right. It's those little moments that mean so much when we put ourselves out there to know how people are receiving it.
Yeah. Right. It's like, it's the feedback loop. A little bit that gets lost in translation with sales, I think sometimes, because it doesn't always come back around.
Right.
Or if it comes back around and it isn't positive, right? That's a whole other aspect. So yeah, good questions.
I watch all your stuff. I see you selling, when it comes to online and stuff. And we've had talks about it. And like, I always just feel like there's so much I can learn from you, because on the outside, you look like a natural. Because it looks like you being you. You're not.
It is me.
Yeah.
I don't know how to sell any other way. I actually think that I have a harder time formulating my emails and stuff for like, say, potential, site visit, or trying to offer a program in a school or an author visit or something, because I feel like I feel like showing up via email, even though that feels really comfortable for me, being able to write ahead of time and edit and be very mindful about my language and whatnot. It still feels less personal, right? With Instagram and with social media. I mean, the word social is right there in the title, even if it causes anxiety, which I know you had mentioned before, we're going to be discussing in another episode. It winds up still feeling like, this is Margot, this is my page. And so it feels authentic to me, to the way that I sell, air quotes, on there feels different than when I'm trying to sound really formal and like professional person in the world. There's just a difference. So yeah, super interesting. But those reframes have been very, very supportive for me. And I think it's just a great reminder. And you know what? I think there's something to be said about when I said that I'm always impressed by really great salespeople. There's also a lot of great, resources out there. I've read a lot of articles about selling. I've taken courses from professionals about selling things and how to sell without being, as you put it so vividly, slimy.
Yeah.
Abby just made a great face when I said the word slimy again. I'll let you all visualize it in your minds. Well, thanks for listening, and all that positive reframing from me too, and new things for me to think about in my anxiety journey surrounding selling.
Yeah. I mean, it's ultimately, I feel like the anxiety comes up because we live in a capitalistic society. We need to make money to survive at like the most basic level. If people aren't buying your stuff,
it's simple math, people.
Then there's like the survival instinct kicks in. And with that is the feeling of anxiety. Right. Yes. And so, I just feel like, it's just, sometimes we talk about anxiety and it's like this day-to-day thing, but it's also like a survival mechanism that is somewhat outdated, but also very relevant to like living in a capitalistic society.
Totally. So true. All righty, Rue. Moving on. Let's hear your selling stuff.
Yeah. So I could very much relate to like everything that you said. Like I loved creating, right? Like as a kid, I was always journaling. Even if my journalers were like, I'm mad at my 4th grade teacher, she's mean, right? Like, but there was always journaling and drawing and doodling. And then like in my teens and early 20s, I got really into like coloring books and like shading. And I can't even explain it. I was just like super into coloring. It was a very soothing process. And then later on, I got into like watercoloring. None of this I took classes for. I just like did my own basic stuff, but it all felt really good. And then, when I was like teaching in schools and stuff, it was the same thing. Like creating curriculum just came so naturally and it felt so fun and so creative. And how do you make like these engaging, dynamic lesson plans for your kids? And what I really liked was I would create like this curriculum and I would just be in this flow state creating it and like so excited to teach my kids it. And then, it was also really nice. In this one company I contracted with, I had like created some kids yoga curriculum and the teachers would reach out to me and they were like, this is awesome. So that feedback was always really nice when people appreciated the creativity. When I think of like passion and creating things, I always think of the Khalil Gibran has the book, The Prophet. Have you ever read The Prophet?
I haven't.
It's beautiful. And one of the lines that has always stuck with me is that work is love made visible.
Ooh, but body chills.
Yeah. And he goes like all into work. And he's like, you know, if you're going to like make bread, but make bread without love, like you're really only like, you know, taking away from people's ability to enjoy the bread. Right. And he's like, you know, when you're weaving, weave the threads with love as if you're creating this for the person you love. Right. And it's all this beautiful imagery, but
love that.
When I think about, you know, like creating stuff, I always think about that. Like I put myself and I put my love into it, which then absolutely has challenges when I'm creating stuff to sell. Right. Because I do like I'll talk about that rejection piece, but I do feel like in a sense, because I'm putting my whole heart into it, when people are not into it, I do feel rejected. Right.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, so I've created recently, you know, I've created a couple audio courses that are on Insight Timer, and I also sell them on my website. And, you know, I've been creating a lot of like different like empowerment courses and courses for teens. And I have so much joy creating them. You know, I just recently did like a 1-hour stress reduction course. But the moment I'm done, I'm like, crap. Now I have to let people know about this. And I have to sell it. Right. And so, that's when all the like the stress comes in. And so, like I said earlier, like for me, selling feels manipulative. Right. And like in the wellness world, a lot of selling is telling people what's wrong with them. It's telling people what they're lacking. It's telling them how they need to like, you know, have more personal development so they can be happier in life. Right. And I just feel like at some level that is all manipulation. Right. It's like, oh, you have this problem. Let me sell you this. Like it even makes me think about, you know, what, like 100 years ago, like women weren't shaving their legs and their armpits. And then like some razor companies and some like cream companies for removing hair were like, well, women are showing more of their legs. We should make them feel bad about themselves and tell them they need, right? Like
it's all about shame.
It's all about, so that's like what I think about with selling. It's like preying on people's insecurities.
Yes.
Right. And so that's where I'm like, that's where like the sleazy, slimy manipulation idea, you know, take this course, you know, and you'll feel more confident. Like I never want to say that, but I feel like the people that say that are the ones that are actually selling their stuff. Right.
Probably.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
You know, buy this audio course and you'll feel more calm and focused. But then like for me, it's like, okay, but everyone has different experiences. And if they don't feel calm and focused, they're going to feel disappointed, or they're going to like want their money back, or they're going to like think what's wrong with them for not feeling that way. And so I never want people to feel bad. Right. So I don't want to pretend they're going to get stuff that they're not. But then like the other resistance is to selling is really just like especially on like social media, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, I don't like when people slide into my DMs and they pretend they care about me. And they're like, hey, so I see you do coaching and that's so awesome. And, you know, all this like stuff. And then it's like, hey, so I have the service for you. Right. Like,
yeah,
I didn't reach out to you. I'm not looking for a service. Don't pretend you like me, right? Don't pretend you care about me. Like instead, slide into my DMs and say, hey, we live in a capitalistic society. In order for me to survive, I need to sell stuff. This is my service. Are you interested?
It's very specific.
I feel like I would be more interested if people were just honest. Right. It's like
upfront.
Yeah. It's not manipulative or like, hey, we think you'd be a great ambassador for our clothes. DM us. And then it's like, oh, actually, we're just going to give you like 10% off. And then we're going to use all your stuff for our content. It's like, no, that's slimy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, like I have a really hard time like cold messaging and just sending stuff out because the last thing I want to do is ever come off like those people. Right. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't feel like integrity to me. It doesn't feel aligned with my values. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, I can relate to what you said in like the fear of rejection, right? Because for me, like I said before, like I put my whole heart into these projects. Like I put so much time and effort. Like it's probably more than needs to go into them because like the perfectionist vibe and everything comes out and the over analyzing and is it good enough, right? Like all of that when it's getting ready to ship, getting ready to, you know?
Yeah.
And so when people aren't interested or whatever, it does feel like it's a rejection of me, not the product, even though I understand that's not true. I get that. Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've noticed, and again, we'll talk about this in the next episode too, is, or a few episodes from now, is when I'm selling on Instagram, it's when I get the least amount of likes. And so, like you said, I feel like I'm being annoying. I feel like people don't care. Right. Yeah. And it makes me feel bad. It makes me feel like people, when people don't like it, right? Like the heart, like, you know, like,
yeah, I know what you mean. Like a physical, like on the app. Yeah.
It does make me feel like I'm being annoying. And so they're choosing not to give me any attention because I'm being annoying, right? You know how it's always like ignore bad behavior, right? It's like whenever I'm selling something, it's the least amount of likes. And I know that like maybe Instagram like doesn't show content that they think involves selling because they want you to buy ads so that you can do that. So maybe that's true, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, when like no one is even acknowledging something I created, right? It just really deflates me and it makes me like wonder, like, why am I doing this? Right. And like, really like the only people like when I'm selling stuff that like stuff are like you, my mom and my Aunt Cherry. So thank you all. But you know, the last thing I'll say before just the reframes is that, in person feels different. And so the pandemic has really impacted that for me because in person, it's authentic and organic. I am literally just talking to someone and I'll be like, oh my gosh, yeah, like my life really changed around the age of 28 when I realized not all my thoughts I think are true. And they're like, what? Tell me. And I'm like, oh my God, my life sucked before. Right. And I'm just telling my story. And then, you know, someone's like, oh, so what did you do? And I'm like, oh, it's coaching. And then they want to learn more about coaching. Right. Or I talk about like how I was never taught how to like calm down or pay attention and it's natural and it's organic. And then they're like, oh, do you want to come teach at our school? And I'm like, yeah. So in person never feels like selling. It feels like I'm just being me and sharing the things I'm passionate about versus online. People don't know me. You don't know me. So you just don't, don't know if I'm just being a sleazy salesperson trying to get your money for some stuff. So the reframe that really has stuck with me, although again, I'm not fully there yet, is actually one I got from Anthony, who is a previous guest of ours.
Woo!
I can view selling as being of service, right? And there is value in what I'm offering. And people are suffering and I have a service that can truly help people. And I can be authentic in sharing what I offer and not be slimy or manipulative, right? Which I feel like is what I do. I don't say what I offer is going to save your life. I don't say that. It might help, might not, right? But that is the reframe that I'm really working on seeing, is that when I'm sharing the things I've created, it can be of service for people. And that's the thing that like, I'm really trying to like take as my new narrative, as offering it as a piece of service.
Here. I love that. Good job, Anthony. I love that so much. Oh my God. Like what you said to me, there's so many things I want to say, and I know I'll forget like 99.9% of them. So a few things. I love that it sounds like and I think this is true for all adults. Maybe I'm painting with too broad a stroke here, but when we're children, when we're growing, when our brains aren't fully developed, we move through life and we do things out of gut and instinct, right? Like you mentioned, like you loved creating and journaling and doodling, and that you didn't take classes to learn, right? Certain types of art techniques or whatever, but you just did it because it felt good.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is like the good and bad thing about being in like a not fully formed stage of your life, right? It's like, it's like an amazing stage of your life when you just like more fearless, I think, when it comes to doing anything, including maybe selling stuff. We should just give selling stuff to like 20-year-olds. Maybe I'm sure they could sell everything brilliantly, right?
Yes.
Like so much of what you said just reminded me of like in the early part of your share, just reminded me of like how much more fearless I used to be when I was younger too. How I wouldn't have thought twice about just following my gut, just going with my gut, just following the instinct, regardless of perceptions or the outer world, or thinking about, how our capitalistic society informs the way we do everything. And now that we're adults with, mortgages and pets and families and car payments, and, we have to live, we have to breathe, we have to eat, we have to buy stuff.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that off the top. And I loved that you shared a little bit about wellness sales, right? That's something that like I really didn't mention, but like there is something so much more gross, I think, about somebody trying to change someone's life in that way. Even if what you think you're selling could or has the potential to do that.
Right.
It doesn't mean that what you have is going to help change my life necessarily. And if you pitch it to me like that, I might be even less likely to even give you like the time of day, even if what you have is amazing. And so it kind of just reiterated for me, like those set expectations sound like it's or in your mind, maybe having things be sold to you with set expectations feels really, really gross. Right.
Yeah.
But I wonder, when you're trying to sell your coaching stuff or your mentoring or your, mindfulness classes or your audio courses or whatever, what are some expectations that feel really good for you to set up? Are there any that you can think of that, like, even just from right now and going forward, if you were to have to go online right now and make an Instagram post about selling one of your services, like what would be something that you could say that's true to your audience?
Yeah. I mean, and that, there's something that clicked that I want to address in just a sec after I answer this that you just said, but for me, like in like a teen audio course, right? It's teaching kids life skills they aren't taught in school. And I don't feel like that's slimy or manipulative. Like it's literally like kids are being told to calm down, but more often than not, they're not taught how. Kids are told to pay attention. Kids are told, I don't go to bed, be kind to other people, do this, do that, whatever it might be, but they're not always taught how. It's just like the expectation they should know, even though they're children. Right. And so that is definitely like something that, maybe some teens know some of the skills, but it's like in teen audio course, it's 10 different sessions. So I'm sure there's some skills they have definitely not learned in school.
Right.
That would help them. But the other thing that you said, and I can't even remember exactly what you said, but what clicked for me was that, a couple times some like slime buckets DM'd me and they said stuff like, hey, we would love to like collaborate on bringing mindfulness into a school. And I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. Right. And I wasted my time where they actually like wanted to do something where I had to pay them and they would like give me leads. And that is the manipulation. They did not want to collaborate. Just say, hey, we'll offer a service that we will get leads for you if you pay for it. Like, just be honest in what you're offering, because if you're just honest and you're not manipulating, then people can actually make a decision without wasting everyone's time. Right. And I don't know what you said. I guess when you said like the expectations, it's like in those DMs, set up the expectations.
Right.
Don't be a bucket of slime, because that's what I think those people are that email me on LinkedIn.
Bucket of slime.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because that was the other thing I was going to touch on, was that like that came up for me when you were talking about the people that slide into your DMs or people that just like kind of come at you. Like the expectation is I'm doing you a favor.
Yes.
Right. I'm here to serve you, but really it comes off as like, I'm here because you need help, as you said before, so beautifully. And so what I think is missing for so many people is that like the relationship piece. You can't skip the building of the relationship before you go selling your stuff to people.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a desire to build a relationship, that should be your answer right there. If you don't have a desire to build a relationship with a company or a person or, you know, an organization or whatever, then why should they trust you? And at the end of the day, want to buy from you or collect on your service? Like, so I know this has a little bit less to do with like anxiety surrounding selling, but maybe it's just a good tip for anyone, any warrior listening that has anxiety about selling themselves, their services, or their products, that like building relationships is a great way of selling, right? Trying actually having meaningful conversation with a person. Like imagine if one of those slimy collab people spent at least a couple of weeks, like following your page, engaging with your posts, DMing you about other stuff, you know, like then maybe you might have entertained having a deeper conversation with them.
Exactly.
So just like some food for thought about like, if you are anxious about selling stuff, maybe it's because you aren't coming from an authentic place. And I feel like in my head, this is making a click too. I always feel like I'm coming from an authentic place, but I'm going to spend some time like after this conversation thinking about it. Are all my messages coming from a completely authentic place? Are all of my emails coming from a completely authentic place? And if not, that's information.
Right. That's the thing is like, for me, I'm trying to find the alignment between my values and selling. And for me, like my biggest value or my biggest strength, I don't know which one to categorize it as, is honesty. It's being honest. Right. And like, I mean, I took those like VIA strength tests, and every time it's like honesty is number one. Right. So like for me, it's like, how do I align those two so that I can survive in a capitalistic society, but with my integrity?
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
So true. And the final thing I'll say that I really, I want to hammer home, not just for you, but for any warrior that feels the same way. Like you had very kindly said to me, you are like the least annoying person like on planet Earth. So there's that. But the other thing I want to add about that is just like, if you're out there listening and you feel like you can be pushy or too much or over the top or whatever, like Abby, you had just said a moment ago, you understand that these things are not true. Even if it's a practice, having to remind yourself of that, having to remember it, even if it's painful, having to remember it, you understand that the thoughts that we have about ourselves aren't necessarily true. Our thoughts aren't fact, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to hammer home. I wrote it down. I appreciated you saying that. Like, even though these feelings come up, it's a struggle, you understand that it's not true.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it's such an important reminder, because the narrative is so strong that even if you know it's not true, the narrative can still dictate your behavior.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it's really like, no, okay, I know that this thought isn't necessarily true. Now let me also change the behavior to show that I know it's not true. Because otherwise, if I keep doing the same behavior, then I'm showing the thought that I think it's true.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And this is hard, y'all. Like, this is not easy stuff we're suggesting here. So just throwing that to you as well, warriors. No Band-Aid fixes here at Anxiety Warriors podcast, because we don't have answers. We have responses. We're not doctors. We're certainly not experts on selling stuff.
We're not marketers.
It's hilarious to even consider calling ourselves experts in selling stuff. All right, warriors. So we hope that you found anything that we shared today with you all helpful, at least in the reflection part for yourselves. Like when you're thinking about what makes you feel slimy, like when people have sold to you and you felt really gross about it, what was it about their pitch or how they came off that was unsettling or disconcerting or whatever? And if you're in a business where you're trying to sell yourself or your services or your products or whatever, what comes up for you in your body, in your mind? What are your thoughts like? So take some time this week and reflect on your relationship with sales, your relationship with selling. Do you have anxiety around selling or being sold to? And what are some of the things that come up for you? If and when?
You know, I'll just say, like, if you have a friend that's selling, just like their post. Yes, just write that review. It's just free. Send that DM saying, hey, that was a really cool thing you did. Like those little moments. Like, I don't like social media, and like we've given you the heads up, we're going to talk about it again soon. But I will tell you that I intentionally go on, one, to support our Anxiety Warriors podcast page, obviously. And then I always try to find Margot's posts and like your posts. And then I sign off.
Yeah. No, it's true. Feedback is so valuable.
Support the people that are selling stuff, and they're your friends. Support your friends. There you go.
Support your friends. It's just that simple.
Hey, Margot.
Hey, Abby.
Have a win of the week. Win of the week.
I sure do have a win of the week. So speaking on feedback and, you know, loving on thy neighbor that sells stuff, my children's book just finally hit 100 5-star reviews on Amazon this week.
Woohoo! Congratulations.
Thank you, lady. Exciting. I felt like it was a slow process, but not really. Like, I know so many people that have made stuff and it takes them a really long time to hit that milestone. So I do feel really grateful for all the people that I've harassed to leave reviews that did kindly, all the people that I didn't have to harass that just instinctively knew it was the nice, loving, kind, supportive thing to do. Thank you all so much that have purchased and have left a review. And I'm stoked to have hit this milestone. I can't wait to hopefully keep it going.
Yes. Keep it going. Keep it growing.
Yes.
You're not harassing. You're not annoying. You're just asking to help fuel this growth so more people get the books and see it. And so
and that's help children. That's
exactly. Right. My favorite practice is in your book. It's not a cold. It's amazing.
Love. All right. Thank you so much, Warriors, for listening. If you love our show and you would like to send the feedback loop around back to us, go ahead and please smash that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a short or long review over there if that's where you listen. You can also tap that 5 stars on Spotify. Now has that awesome new 5-star feature. We love it. So please, if you listen in both places, please do both. If you listen in one place, please do it there. We appreciate all of the love we can get from all of you wonderful warriors, so we can keep doing this work that brings us so much joy. Speaking of creating stuff that brings us joy, this podcast is definitely something that brings us both joy, and we feel grateful for it. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us on Instagram. We're at Anxiety Warriors Podcast, or you can shoot us an email at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com. Send us your wins of the week. Let us know if you have topic ideas for us, or if you think you'd be an awesome fit as a guest on our show. We'd love to hear from you. Please reach out. And we love you.
Yes. Thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We're so grateful you all are here.
Till next time.